Good day, farmers. My name is Hank Saisai, Agribank's Technical Advisor for Crops and Poultry. In today's session, we are going to cover crop spacing, plant population, and fertilizer application methods. So if you are a crop farmer and you want to understand what is the most basic thing that leads to profits in farming with crops, we have to start by understanding the essential of crop spacing. If there is a certain crop that you want to grow as a farmer, for instance the green pepper that I'm seeing here today, you need to understand that from this first row of green pepper or line of green pepper to this second row of green peppers, what is the recommended spacing between line 1 and line 2? So when you are preparing your soil or when you want to plant your green peppers in prepared soil, you need to understand on average green peppers, it's recommended to have a spacing between row of 40 centimeters from line 1 to line 2. Once we know that from line 1 to line 2 it's 40 centimeters, the other important aspect to understand is the fact that the spacing within each line or row plays an essential role. From plant 1 to plant 2, what is recommended to be the ideal planting space? For instance, if you are growing green pepper, the recommended space is 30 centimeters from plant 1 to plant 2, growing in the same line. The reason why spacing your crops is an important factor of production is simply because, one, each of these crops makes use of sunlight for it to produce its own food. Secondly, each plant has water requirements that it needs to meet on a daily basis. Thirdly, each plant has nutritional requirements it needs to meet on a daily basis. So if we do not space our crops accordingly, we kind of enhance the competition between these two plants for water, nutrient and sunlight. And if they are vigorously competing or aggressively competing for water, nutrients and sunlight, it means we hamper the growth of these vegetables. Now the second parameter why cropping or planting spacing is important, it is a parameter that helps you as a farmer to understand on a certain given period, on a certain given piece of land, how many crops can I grow or plants can I grow. If I have these two rows that are 100 meters each, and I know that from line 1 to line 2, it's 40 centimeters. If I prepare, for instance, 4 meters, it will help me to know how many rows can I have. If my seedbed is, for instance, 4 meters wide from that point to that point, it will mean if I take 4 meters divided by 0.4, which is 40 centimeters from line 1 to line 2, it will mean I will have 10 rows of green peppers. Then I need to know if each row has a length of 100 meters, and from plant 1 to plant 2, the spacing which is recommended is 30 centimeters. I take 100 meters, I divide it by 0.3. If I say 100 divided by 0.3, it will tell me the number of plants that I'll be able to grow in a given piece of land. So if it's 100 divided by 0.3, it means in one single line, which is 100 meters long, I'll be able to grow 333 green peppers. So if I have 10 rows of green peppers, it will mean I'll be able to produce 1,000, or I'll be able to plant 1,333 green peppers. If I know that each of these green peppers, for instance, gives me 4 fruits, or on instance 0.2 kgs, I take 0.2 kgs times 1,333 green peppers. That gives me my expected or estimated yield from this single block of green peppers. Now when it comes to pricing my vegetables, if I know I have 1,333 green peppers growing on this seedbed, and I look at the growing period, which is 90 days, how much money did I incur in the 90 days? I'll see that, okay, over the period of 90 days, I've spent a certain amount of money divided by the number of plants here, or divided by the number of kilograms I was able to produce here. It will give me the unit cost of producing 1 kilogram of green peppers. So when I'm now selling As a farmer who wants to make profit, I take my unit cost as the guide to say, do not sell below this amount. So I will have to put up a certain markup price on top of the unit cost for me to make profit from this enterprise. And lastly, in today's session, it's essentially important to know that application of fertilizer is one aspect that is very essential in success when it comes to crop production. For instance, when I'm preparing the soil by turning it with a digging fork, the moment I apply cattle manure, sheep manure, or any other basal fertilizer that has to be incorporated with the soil before planting, that method of adding manure or chemical fertilizer before planting is known as basal application of fertilizer. The reason why we are doing basal application is to ensure that the seed we are putting in the soil, it must have access to phosphorus, which is essential for root development when the seed is now germinating. Essentially, we will have to incorporate nitrogen in the soil for us to grow this vegetative part of the crop. By the time your crop starts showing you these small flowers, it's essential to know that this flower is eventually what turns into a fruit. So I know that the function of potassium is what brings about the flower, and later onwards brings about the fruit. And this is where you have to be careful with fertilizer application. Before planting, you have to apply fertilizer. 3 weeks after planting, you have to apply fertilizer, and you can maintain it as every third week you have to apply fertilizer, or every second week you have to apply fertilizer. But remember, each element is essential at a different growing stage. When I'm still developing the root system of this specific crop, I need to have a lot of phosphorus in the soil. By the time the root system is well developed, I start pushing up the vegetative part, which is the green leafy area you see here, to grow by adding a lot of nitrogen in the soil. By the time the flower comes, I need to reduce the amount of nitrogen which is being supplied to the plant. Then I have to push a lot of potassium to this specific plant so that potassium can turn this into a fruit. So how do I apply that? I can do it by applying fertilizer on the side of each crop. I put my hand at the base of this stem, and 10 centimeters away, which is on this side of the hand, I make a small hole. I put granular fertilizer there. When I'm opening the irrigation system, as the water is dripping and dissolving that area, those granulars, they start to release elements that are essential for this specific plant. Secondly, I can put water-soluble fertilizer in my irrigation system. From the main tank, I need to put a fertigation tank where I'll be putting the granulars. When water is flowing from the main tank, it dissolves the grains and then it pumps up all the nutrients in my irrigation system. When this pipe is releasing water, it's also adding nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium to ensure that my crop is able to grow very well. So it's essential to understand that crop spacing, plant population, and application methods of fertilizer, they enable you as a farmer to grow crops in a successful manner. So in today's session, that is what we had to cover. I thank you.